Super cheap family dinners that don't feel like we're eating on a budget. That was the challenge. Here's everything I purchased to make 5 nights of dinners for my family of 5, which includes 2 adults and 3 teenagers, all with healthy appetites. But these are not bare minimum meals. These are meals that my family would actually eat on repeat, including some favorites that are often requested. And honestly, I wasn't sure this would be possible right now with grocery prices being what they are, but you be the judge. Would your family eat these? I spent right around $75 with most of my items coming from Walmart and just a few items from Sprouts, though you should be able to pick up most of these ingredients at just about any grocery store. You can get these things at Walmart, but I ran into Sprouts because they were on sale. 2 pounds of pasta, and this is a specific kind that I like. It's bronze cut. And then this is 1.5 pounds of raw shrimp. It was on a manager special, so I got a fantastic deal on this. Maybe you can find a good sale, or maybe you already have some of these things hanging out in your pantry, fridge, and freezer and can spend even less. Tonight we are having beef cavatappi with roasted zucchini and carrots. I will leave the original recipe linked in the description box, but here's what I'm using to make it tonight. I'm going to show you how. I already have my pasta cooking. I brought a big pot of salted water to a boil, and as soon as that pasta is done cooking to al dente, I'm going to drain it and set it aside. And now I'm browning up 1 pound of ground beef, and just as soon as this renders a little bit of fat, I'm going to add in some diced onion. My yellow onion was really large, so I only needed to dice up about 1/4 of it to get about 1/2 cup of onions, which is all I'll need. The onions are starting to get tender. The beef is almost cooked, so I'm going to press some garlic into this. Probably have about 4 cloves of garlic. You could go more or less depending on how much your family likes garlic. I'm seasoning this with about 1/2 teaspoon each of basil and thyme. Fortunately, I have some more of this in my spice cabinet. I can refill this bottle because it's gone. 2 teaspoons of beef broth bouillon, or you could use cubes, 2 cubes. My tomato sauce. This is a 15-ounce can, the large can. And I'm gonna fill this up 1 time with water and empty it into the pan as well. Now in the can, I have a tablespoon of cornstarch with about 1/4 cup of water. Just a few tablespoons, just enough to dissolve the cornstarch. So I'm gonna stir that. You need cold water, dissolve the cornstarch in cold water. And now I'm going to add it to my pan. Give everything a nice stir. I want to bring this up to a simmer, reduce the heat to low and cover it, and let it simmer here for about 5 minutes or so before we move on. I already have my carrots in the oven. Would you believe that 2 pounds of baby carrots is almost the exact same price as 2 pounds of regular whole carrots? I decided I'd save myself the trouble of peeling and chopping and just get the baby carrots. But they take a little longer to roast than the zucchini, so I need to give them about a 10-minute head start. So as soon as this zucchini is chopped up, I will pull out the pan from the oven very carefully, and I will add my zucchini to the pan and season everything with a little oil, salt, and pepper, and we'll let everything finish roasting together, probably another 10 minutes or so at 400. Okay, my sauce has been simmering here for probably 7 or 8 minutes, and now I'm going to stir in a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, or what I call just a capful. 1/2 cup or so of heavy whipping cream, or you could use 1/2 and 1/2. The original recipe calls for mozzarella, but I'm gonna use sharp cheddar because that's what I bought today at the grocery store. I'm gonna give this a stir, and as soon as that cheese is melted and everything is incorporated again and heated through, I'm gonna add my pasta, but actually I'm gonna add my sauce to my pasta because my skillet isn't quite big enough to give it a good stir, so we'll just pour everything from the skillet over the pasta in my big stock pot here. Okay, here it is. Really easy dinner. This comes together in like around 30 minutes or so. Pretty simple, but very yummy. I am so excited about today's sponsor because I've been a customer of theirs for a while now. About 1.5 years ago, I started investing in some caraway pans, and you've actually been seeing them in my videos for months now. So when they reached out and asked if they could work with me, I was like, way ahead of you. Way ahead of you, Caraway. Caraway is a non-toxic kitchenware brand, and their ceramic coating is made without PTFE, PFOA, PFAs, and other forever chemicals. It's third-party tested, and they check for over 200 forever chemicals to make sure it's not in their ceramic coating. However, that non-toxic ceramic coating is still naturally slick, so you get that non-stick cooking experience you want with less oil and butter. And let's face it, considering my Kerrygold butter habit, that is definitely gonna save me money over time. Plus it makes cleanup a breeze. My teenagers love these pans because they're super easy to clean, and they are the ones who are usually on kitchen duty after meals. Now, I was cooking in our home kitchens for almost 20 years before I could afford to install proper pan drawers underneath our stove, so I totally understand how cumbersome and quite frankly annoying pot and pan storage can be. They take up a lot of space. But if you're short on storage, Caraway has some really savvy storage solutions, including some magnetic pan rests that double as drying racks, and also this really nifty canvas storage for lids that you can hang right on your wall or the inside of a cabinet. And yes, Caraway is an investment compared to other cookware, but I cook almost every day, multiple times a day. So having high quality, non-toxic cookware that is easy to use, clean, and store is absolutely worth it to me. I'm looking back through my Amazon orders and I see that I purchased the Caraway nonstick ceramic saute pan you've been seeing in my videos back on July 22nd of 2024. So I've been using that pan for the better part of 2 years, and honestly, I probably used it 3, 4, 5 times a week. It was the main pan that I cooked in, but let's be conservative and say I only used it twice a week in the last 2 years. That comes out to just 82 cents per use. Making small upgrades gradually can make a big impact, but if you want to invest in this set from Caraway, you'll save at least 20% compared to buying the pieces individually over time. Plus, you can stack my code MindyMom on top of that for an extra 10% savings. If you're ready to swap out your pans for a non-toxic alternative, again, my code is MindyMom at Caraway for 10% off. Plus, from the time this video is going up through June 22nd, they're having some Father's Day deals. If you spend over $4.95, they're gonna give you a free butcher box. If you spend over $7.95, they're gonna give you that butcher box plus one of their cast iron grill pans. And yes, you can still stack my 10% off code MindyMom on top of those deals. To check out Caraway, just head to their website or follow the link in the description box below. And again, my code is MindyMom for 10% off. And thank you again to Caraway for sponsoring today's video. Tonight, I am making a shrimp boil. And no, this is probably not an authentic low country boil or shrimp boil or seafood boil. This is probably not the way your Cajun grandmother taught you to do it, if you have a Cajun grandmother. This is just how I do it, and my family loves it. It's actually still about 4 or 5 hours until dinner time, but I'm going to get the base, the broth and the veggies going in the slow cooker. I'm just gonna use the smallest potatoes from my 3-pound bag of yellow potatoes. Not everybody in my family even likes these, but there are some little ones in the bag. I'm just gonna wash those really thoroughly and put them in the crock pot. Andouille sausage would be really great in this. We just prefer regular smoked sausage or beef smoked sausage. I'm gonna slice up most of the link that I purchased for these meals. I'm gonna save just a little bit though for another recipe later in the week. Fresh corn on the cob is coming into season in my part of the country, and it was really cheap at the grocery store when I was shopping for this meal plan the other day. So I picked up 4 ears of fresh corn. I'm gonna shuck those and then I'm gonna break them into small pieces. But I have used frozen corn on the cob before when fresh corn isn't available or it's just too expensive because it's not in season. Oops. There we go. I'm also tossing in half an onion and 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. I'm not gonna bother dicing those up. I'm just gonna throw them in whole because I can fish out the pieces later. Half a lemon, I'm gonna squeeze the juice out and then just toss it into the crock pot with everything else, along with a 1/4 cup of Old Bay seasoning. I'm gonna add a splash of hot sauce and just a little bit of salt and pepper. I have 2 quarts of chicken broth that I actually made in the slow cooker with the bones from some rotisserie chickens that we used for lunches this week. I'm gonna pour that chicken broth over the top of everything, make sure it's all covered, pop the lid on. I want it to cook on low for probably 4 to 5 hours or high for 2 to 3, and we'll come back to it. But I did include bouillon cubes in my grocery haul for this meal plan, so you could just toss a few of these in there with 2 quarts of water or enough to cover everything up. Now, once this has simmered for a few hours, the potatoes are cooked and the corn has steamed and the broth is nice and bubbly, I will usually just throw the shrimp in here with everything else about 10 to 15 minutes before I want to serve it. It takes anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes for my shrimp to cook, depending on the size and the kind that I purchased. And then I just line our patio table with some brown butcher paper and I drain the shrimp boil. Once the shrimp has cooked, put it on the table and then melt a little butter that everybody can use to dip their shrimp in. But this time I think I'm gonna try something a little bit different. I think I'm gonna make a butter sauce on the stove and cook the shrimp in that and then serve it over the top of everything else on the table. I have made shrimp boils using several different kinds of shrimp, but I want them to be raw deveined and preferably tail on. I've used frozen before, I've used fresh. These are fresh from Sprouts. I found a really great deal on them. Now these are easy peel shrimp, so the shells are still on. They are deveined though, but they'll be really easy to peel after they cook. I chopped up about half a cup of onions and gave them a little head start with a little oil in my pan, and I just about caramelized them, but that's okay. This is about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic chopped up. This is about half a cup of broth from the crock pot where everything else is cooking. I'm actually gonna do 2 of those, so about a cup. 2 tablespoons of Old Bay. I'm gonna do about half a teaspoon of paprika, a little dash of hot sauce, the juice from half a lemon. I wish I had a whole lemon of juice in here, but we'll make do with a half because I already put the other half in with the vegetables. Give that a little stir, make sure all of the seasonings here are incorporated. 2 sticks of butter. You heard that right. 1 whole cup of butter. Normally I would just melt these. I would melt some butter in a bowl and have it on the table for people to dip things in, but we're doing this a little differently this time. My sauce is simmering, so time to add my shrimp. I'm gonna stay here with these and give them a stir as they are cooking because it will not take long for them to cook in this sauce. I just wanna make sure that they get turned and flipped so that they are all getting underneath the sauce and in the heat, so that they can cook through completely. When I feel like my sauce is getting too thin, I can add a little bit more broth from my crock pot right next to me. It's still very hot. I usually make a batch of Cheddar Bay biscuits to go along with this meal, and we almost always eat it outside on the patio. I like to just line our patio table with some brown butcher paper or some paper grocery sacks, and not only is it delicious, the cleanup is super easy because we just roll everything up in that brown paper and then just take it out to the trash. I know I have mentioned this several times over the years, but I try to mention it at least once in the warmer months. This is how we make s'mores in our household. We have a solo stove. Before that, we had a chimenea. The kids have always enjoyed roasting marshmallows. And this is just an easy way to make s'mores with 2 ingredients that cost me like less than $4 total. We can make a lot of s'mores with a bag of marshmallows and a package of fudge stripe cookies. $15 per meal for my family of 5 may not seem very extreme, but given the rising cost of groceries these days, it's a little harder than you think, especially if you want to make meals that are not only inexpensive, but that your family will truly enjoy eating. Not to mention the cost of eating out has skyrocketed. I mean, it's probably around $50 just for my family of 5 to go through a drive-through for fast food. And we still do that occasionally, but it's definitely more of a treat than it used to be, and we don't go as often. All that kind of makes the $15 price tag look a little bit more impressive to me, considering I'm getting 5 full plates of food, plus usually at least 1 or 2 servings of leftovers. I am marinating my chicken breasts in Italian dressing and about a teaspoon of garlic salt. And I bought about 3 pounds, a little shy of 3 pounds of chicken breasts, and there were only 4 chicken breasts in the package. So I cut them each in half before putting them into the marinade. So now I have 4 kind of standard sized chicken breasts that my husband can throw on the grill later. It is 9 o'clock in the morning. So these are gonna marinate in the refrigerator for, you know, a solid like 8 hours or so before we're ready to cook them. I also only used about 2/3 of my bottle of Italian dressing. I reserved a little bit because we're actually gonna prep 2 meals tonight with this chicken. I washed and chopped the rest of my yellow potatoes, and they are on a sheet pan with the rest of my baby carrots, a little oil, salt, pepper. They're roasting in the oven at 350. I'm gonna give them a 10-minute head start before I add the rest of my zucchini chopped up. And then my husband is gonna throw the chicken on the grill, and that's gonna be dinner tonight. Grilled chicken, roasted veggies, easy peasy. And because it's so easy, we are cooking once to eat twice tonight. I've got a pot of water coming to a boil behind me. As soon as that boils, I'm going to cook a pound of pasta. Mine is penne, shortcut pasta. And I'm chopping up a cucumber and a red bell pepper right now. Once the pasta is done, I'm gonna drain it and I'm gonna throw it into a bowl with my chopped veggies. I'm going to toss all of that, plus a can of chickpeas, with the rest of my Italian dressing. And then when we're done with dinner tonight, whatever's left of the chicken, I will throw in with the pasta salad and a little bit of feta cheese, and we'll have dinner ready for tomorrow night too. Yay. Tonight we're having beans and rice, a quintessential budget-friendly meal, but I think sometimes it gets a bad rap as being something plain or boring. But I feel like there's so many different ways to make beans and rice and so many different ways you can add flavor. If we just take the time to learn how to make them properly in a way that our family enjoys, it doesn't feel like a budget meal, it feels like the ultimate comfort food. I'm making a creamy ranch style Great Northern bean. You could use a different kind of beans. I just like the Great Northern beans. And I always seem to forget to soak them overnight. So I'm so glad that I discovered the quick soak method. This is where I boil the beans for about 2 minutes in a big pot, and then I turn the heat off and put the lid on and just let them sit for at least an hour before I drain them. This is 1 pound of pre-soaked Great Northern beans. This is what's left of my giant onion for the week. I'm not even gonna bother chopping it up because I'm just gonna take it out later. It can go in whole. This is 1 jalapeno chopped. This is that little piece of smoked sausage that I saved from the shrimp boil night. I mean, this is probably just like 2 ounces of smoked sausage, and I put it in my little rotary grater and grind it up really small. It's gonna add some flavor. 1 packet of ranch seasoning. I'm gonna throw in 1 of these bouillon cubes here. These are the large ones, so these are actually 1 cube for 2 cups of water. Since I pre-soaked my beans, I am starting with 6 cups of water because a pound of Great Northern beans is a little more than 3 cups. So I'm gonna start with just 2 cups of water per cup of beans. And I will keep an eye on this throughout the day. I'll check on it a few times and see if I need to add more water. I don't want it to be too liquidy at the end. I want the beans to soak up most of the liquid in here. I'm gonna get this going on low, and I'll probably let it sit in here for about 5 to 6 hours. One of the reasons I like a meal like this in a budget meal plan is because I feel like it gives me some wiggle room to spend more on the other meals. So by having a very inexpensive meal like this in a week like this, I make room for the fancier meals with the more expensive ingredients, like the shrimp boil that we enjoyed. This next part is optional, but what I like to do when the beans are done cooking is take some of the beans and liquid and put them in a little blender cup and set them aside. And once they've cooled down just a little bit, pulse them a couple of times to blend them up. And now I'm just gonna pour those back into the crock pot with the others. Give it a stir. I also thought there was just a little bit too much liquid for my beans for them to be like the consistency that I like. So I took a little bit of the liquid out, but I set that aside because I'm gonna use that as part of the broth to cook the rice up for the beans. And then we will be ready to serve this up. Okay, here it is. I know it is so simple, but really tasty. I sliced up the pineapple to go along with this. And I also had a little bit of cheese left over to top every bowl. Yummy. This is what works for my family and what we enjoy. Feel free to just use this as a jumping off point and make adjustments for your own family and your own situation and preferences. And if you want to know what else I would buy to round out this meal plan with breakfasts and lunches and feed my family for about a week, then make sure you are looking out for my next video.